Welcome to Comply or Die, the security, compliance, and regulation podcast powered by OpenSense, where you'll learn to embrace a mindset that prioritizes privacy, trust, reputation, and choice with a single goal: to thrive, not just survive, in today's connected world. Let's dive in.
Hey everyone, this is Alan Wilemon, co-host of the Comply or Die podcast. Welcome to another episode where I am excited to welcome a VIP guest, George Finney, Chief Security Officer at Southern Methodist University and CEO, founder of Well-Aware Security. George is a lot of things. He is a CISO. He is an author, keynote speaker, professor, consultant. It's probably more. Maybe we'll find that out in a minute. But he believes that people are the solution to every cybersecurity problem. He's worked in the space for almost 20 years, has helped startups, global telecommunication firms, nonprofits, all these groups improve their security posture. He's taught cybersecurity at Southern Methodist University and is also the author of several cybersecurity books, including Project Zero Trust and Well-Aware. George, welcome to the podcast, my friend.
Alan, thanks so much for having me on.
And it's a true pleasure. I could tell you are one of those overachievers because you have like 5 jobs and I list at the beginning, and I'm here for it. I love it so much.
I love security. I mean, I think there's so much to do and to get done. I need help, right? So it's, if you're on the fence, like, come on in, we'll invite you in. And man, there's so much room for everybody here. Honestly, I think it's one of the most rewarding things you can do as a human to help make people safe and secure so that they can, live, fulfill, purpose-driven lives.
Love it. Your passion for security already present. I think we're going to tease it out even more as we continue to talk and become even more apparent to people. But I love that invitation. You're inviting more people into the space. If people are coming into the space, thinking about becoming a security professional, what are some of the challenges that come with that role, George?
It's a hard job, but it's also about a lot of fun. So there's so many ways today to get involved in the cybersecurity industry. When I started in my career, a couple of decades ago, we were all really more generalists, right? And I think that required a lot of technical acumen and knowledge to know how things worked in order to kind of protect it. Today, things are a lot more specialized. So I think there's still a lot of room for generalists. We probably need more generalists to see the big picture. But because it's a lot more specialized, right, you can kind of get in lots of different ways. Whether it's, security awareness or governance, risk and compliance, audit, or, on the operations side, maybe it's in a security operations center, or maybe it's helping run pen tests. There's so many different avenues to come to security, right? I think there's a lot of different ways to bring your unique perspective into our profession. The challenges, though, are it is a challenging field. And because we're so specialized, right, seeing the big picture, it is a challenge, and it's evolving so quickly, right? But, if you're in your one domain, all the other domains are evolving along with your domain. So, I like to say, right, we want to bring everyone to the table. But it's also really important to participate and to be a part of that community. So, you really, I think, got to have a commitment to lifelong learning, to reading, books or listening to podcasts like this one, or, just going to conferences and meetups to hear what people are doing in their different areas.
I hear you talking and I hear some things, term like community or bringing people to the table. These kind of very people-focused terms and phrases. And, you have really been open about security being about people. And I think maybe to others, security seems like it's anything but. It's very technical It's a lot of machines. It's a lot of code. It's a lot of all the non-people stuff, but you're really on the other side of that. Talk to me more about that and why you think it's so important to be talking about it in that way.
I think there's a misconception in the security world, right? I'm gonna help educate some folks out there. There's an unofficial motto in the cybersecurity industry, and it's wrong, and we should stop saying it. But everybody's heard it. Everybody's probably said it at one point, and the unofficial motto is "People are the weakest link." Right? How does that make you feel as a person in security or in an organization? Think about, when you talk, when you hear from CEOs talk, they'll say people are their most important asset, right? So are we aligned with CEOs in the business that people are the most important part? Well, no, we're saying people are the weakest link. And I say that's wrong. It's wrong for a number of reasons, right? People are maybe the largest attack surface, I don't think they're the weakest link. I think people are the only link, actually. So, when you start out in security, they'll teach you, security is about people and processes and technology, like they're equal slices of a pie. And usually like there's even like a pie chart in the books that you read. So when you think about it, you read the Verizon data breach report or the other breach reports out there. They say people are the, 95% of all breaches, but, really, it's people that use the technology, that create the technology, that configure the technology. It's people that create the processes, that follow them or not. So really, it's 100% people, with a little bit of technology tools, or a little bit of policy or process kind of sprinkled in for flavor. But oh my gosh, if it's 100% people, why are we using technology, to make things foolproof, right? What always happens when you hear somebody try to make something foolproof, right? It never works. Why do that's the definition of insanity. Why do we keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result? That's why I focus on people. Maybe you say, oh, it's an impossible, job. We'll never change, human, whatever. But I think we can. I don't think we've tried yet. And that's really why, I wrote the book Well Aware. I wanted to start to use some of the lessons that we learned from psychology and neuroscience and human learning theory and game theory, to bring those lessons to cyber. And I think, this is why when soldiers go to war, right, where they say they fight for the person, standing next to them. I think that's why we do what we do in our industry, right? We want to help the people around us, and working in higher ed. I get to see the students that I'm protecting every day, right? When I walk across campus. I think it's all about people, because that's really the only thing worth protecting.
Great mindset. I'm really drawn to that. I love the people centric approach. I think that will resonate too with other people, and maybe people newer in the space. Like you said, if some of those old adages are kind of dug in for people that have worked in the space maybe for a little while, but those maybe a little more, again, just new to the space, they might be seeing that like you're seeing it. How would you say for people that are aligned with you on that? How have you had success kind of evangelizing that message? Maybe at an organization that's a little bit still on the people are the weakest link side. How do you change hearts and minds there?
I think it's easy to get bogged down and to give up, right? It's easy to point the finger at, I don't know, repeat offenders, right? That's one of the things people point to. Some people will never learn. I like to shift it and just say, I think we have to start with empathy, right? Thinking about how we got here in our lives is really important. And, I think one of the things that's maybe holding us back, that, when I've talked to other CISOs, everybody wants to get to 100% perfection today. And I think, as technologists, right, we want to, make it work and have it work the right way. And so, with people, you don't have to start right? With 100%. And there's some great research out of the University of Penn that says actually you don't have to hit 100% to create real long-term sustainable culture change in a group of people. It's actually about 25%. So, that's not an unreachable goal. What we're after is creating a culture of cybersecurity in our organizations, right? We value protecting, our data, our clients, our students, our community, whatever that organization is. It only takes 25%. Gosh, and say I've got a 5-year roadmap. I only have to get 5% a year to bring in people as deputies, to get people into a training program, to go out and sponsor. I do this for like our help desk, right? I've sponsored our help desk staff to go get security certifications out of our training budget. Find different ways to engage people, right? We give out challenge coins as an example, and we've given out hundreds of them all across the organization for playing a role in security, right? And if they feel like they're a part of a team, that's again gonna create that snowball effect to create real long-term sustainable change. And it's not necessarily a mystery, but it is work, right? It's something you have to commit to every day. It's not easy. It's not like I type a command on a firewall and it's just done. So I get it. It's a different type of work. But again, I find that that's the most rewarding work that we can do in our profession.
And so, like you said, so attainable, right? You say 5%. And I'm immediately like, yeah, that's possible. 5% a year, why not? Compared to 100%, which sounds so unattainable. It's like, why try? I'll never get there. Let me shift George here for a second. We'll leave one catchphrase. People are the weakest link behind, but let's turn to another catchphrase of security here. Zero trust. Very popular phrase. I hear it a lot. Give me your explanation of zero trust, if you would.
So I didn't just write the book on security and people with well aware. I also wrote this book, Project Zero Trust. The idea is with zero trust, it's such a kind of a diluted term now because every marketer and their brother are writing about zero trust, but it's not a tool. It's not something you can just plug in and do. It's not even an architecture. I worked with in writing Project Zero Trust, the creator of Zero Trust, John Peterbog. And he's been a mentor of mine, a good friend for almost a decade. It's been fascinating, but his vision for zero trust wasn't that it's this one size fits all architecture, you can check the box and you're done. It's actually a strategy. And it's a strategy. What is a strategy? Strategy is something that security leaders do. It's something that people have to do every day, right? When you think of the military, again, think about commanders' intent, right? Even the privates on the ground needs to know what the general intents. With zero trust, right? The whole point of that was to simplify all of these really great best practices and ideas and kind of encapsulate them in a strategy, which again, as a leader, as a CISO, I have to have a strategy when I go talk to my board, right? Business leaders expect you to have a strategy for success when you do anything. Same with government leaders, right? How are we going to be successful in this kind of worldwide cyber war? Zero trust is the strategy, and the strategy is, simple definition of zero trust. It's a strategy for preventing or containing breaches by removing trust relationships we have in digital systems. We're really easy. Again, we're simplifying it down a lot. That there's a lot of depth there. There are a lot of tactics that you can use to remove the trust relationships we have in digital systems. I think capturing that, again, it's about people. We don't do security in a vacuum. One of the initial reactions a lot of people have to zero trust is well, I shouldn't trust anybody. Well, okay, I get it. We're security people, we're all, spooks in a way. My wife makes fun of me, for not trusting anything, but at the same time, right, if we're going to work together as a team to accomplish the mission is to remove trust, right? The mission is to make the business secure. We have to rely on one another actually to work together. And so how do we do that? Well, we get everybody on the same page with this strategy. We help them align with one another so that we're all moving in the same direction. And, hopefully we're not getting hung up on like, how close to zero are we? How do we measure that? And, I know your podcast is a compliance podcast and, it's hard to kind of align, well, compliance. Well, I got to, make sure that I've done 100% of security awareness training. I've got to, make sure I did it exactly these steps. And the way that zero trust is designed is to be totally custom tailored, bespoke, to the organization specifically. And that takes an understanding of what the business is and how it works, which I think is kind of unique inside any organization, right? Most organizations, again, are siloed. So we all know, right? I can get a new computer thingy working, right? We plug it in and kind of back away slowly. Okay, we don't know how it works or why it's working. Yeah, like let's just not touch it. Zero trust requires you to understand how it's going to be used and why it's going to be used. And we only, configure it so that those things work, not that like anybody can get out to the internet. No, we need to make sure we understand this business unit has this requirement, this job function needs to go do these things. I think, your IT generalist knows how to make a network work. But, taking that next step, right? I think things like identity are really require a deep business understanding of, okay, this new employee started. What permissions do they have to have, right? I've had these mind-blowing conversations with supervisors that have no idea what their employees need to be successful to do their jobs, right? They will just give them everything. Well, hang on. Okay, what does that mean? What systems do they not? Oh, okay. Well, you can help kind of guide them through that process. And so I've actually started thinking of security, the main function of a security team, in their mission is actually education. So much of what we require of IT and the business in general is helping them understand security, and helping them play their respective roles in that overall overarching mission.
Any tips you could share? Because I hear you talking about the importance of aligning the security with the business and those plans, those initiatives, those values, the whatever missions each group might have. Any tips that you have uncovered in your time of how to do that well?
Um, you know, I don't want to downplay how hard this is, at all. So it's not something that's going to happen overnight. I think this is why a lot of people, in security, right, stay in the same industry for so long, right? When you're in banking, for 10 years, this is why a lot of banking, job postings say you've got to have 5 or 10 or 20 years experience in the financial services industry, because you start to figure those things out. And that's really invaluable. For me, I at the university for over 20 years now. So I've kind of got like higher ed figured out. And I understand how the different parts of the business make money or interoperate together. And every, higher ed is slightly different. But the idea is it takes time. One of the challenges with understanding the business is because it takes time. You have to build relationships. You have to ask questions. You have to kind of guide people through the process. If you're like a lot of CISOs, right? If you're going from job to job every 2 or 3 years, it takes time to develop those relationships. It takes time to develop a deep understanding of every business. I think we as an industry need to have better incentives for keeping people longer. And I'm deeply concerned with the trend, it seems, of putting chief security officers in jail for doing their jobs. Again, I think those entities that are pursuing that kind of path of trying to send a message, not to security people, but to other leaders, that they should take security seriously. They're trying to help us essentially do our jobs. They're also having a negative impact on people staying in the industry or wanting to get into the industry because of that perception. So, again, I think it's an incredibly important, impactful field to be in, but you really have to do your homework and understand how business operates. Like some of the most successful CISOs that I know have gone to get their MBA, right? It's not a technical degree, but we need to understand how finance works and how specifically your organization does finance. How do you do that? Well, I mean, and there's so many parts of the business that play a role in security, right? Legal helps protect the organization in a lot of ways, the contracts or regulations. Audit plays a role in security by helping prevent potential issues, fraud from coming up. Finance, they're not just the bean counters, right? They have the money and maybe they help control your budget, but they also prevent fraud. They make sure fraudulent payments aren't happening. So you can't think of security and the security team as the one-stop shop. It is really a team sport. So I would say the probably the easiest thing to do is get out of your office and go meet those people and have conversations with them, have lunch, build relationships, ask hard questions about what we're doing and why we're doing it and how we get here and where we're going. Those conversations will help guide you as you're developing a risk register or planning your next project or understanding with Zero Trust how you craft your protect surface in order to make sure that the business is protected and the security is aligned with that mission.
What do you think the biggest, or a biggest, doesn't have to be the biggest, what's a big myth when it comes to security, breach response that you would love to debunk once and for all?
Gosh, one of the things I've always heard is never use social media. That's one of the things. You're going to get hacked, and well, on the one hand, I saw some statistic that like in 2023, like 80% of all Instagram users had their accounts hacked. I don't think that's necessarily about the users so much as it is maybe the platform and maybe default settings. But I in my own studies, I do surveys of my user population occasionally, and what I found is the more people use social media, the less likely it was for them to become the victim of identity theft. And so, what's the takeaway there? Well, I mean, I think the more you're invested in that community, whatever it is, I don't know, preference on social media, but I think you recognize the dangers. You see the common scams or threats, maybe even the victim, and that helps you accelerate your security journey. And I think that participation in community, whether it's Ring or the Nextdoor app, right? Those apps, often are just used to say, hey, I had a package theft, somebody stole, my car or broke in. Those are communities that develop really around security. That's kind of become their reason for being. I think those myths that maybe we perpetuate that prevent people from participating in those communities, we've got to validate whether those myths are true or not. I think just going off the cuff and saying, nobody use social media. Okay, I don't think it's great advice unless it's backed up with real solid data, for sure.
I love it. Yeah. And probably not something people are going to listen to if you just tell them to just stop getting on social. That ship has sailed a bit there. I love it. What's the alternative that, I'm in alignment with you here, just forbidding things, prohibiting, like, don't use this thing. No explanation, just stop doing it. It doesn't work. People are not really attuned to that. So what's the alternative approach that you have found? And not just focused on social or breach response or breach, prevention, but just when, hey, there's a potential risk out there. Yeah, you could just avoid it entirely, but that's not practical. So what is the way
Yeah.
forward?
Yeah. Yeah. I think neurologically what happens when we say things like never use social media, what we're doing is we're putting people into a cynical frame of mind. And so this is a shortcut, right? We're saying you can avoid all dangers, by just being cynical. And I think you're limiting your own ability to interact and grow as a person. And so, instead what psychologists recommend, is, get away from cynicism, right? We have to have, good judgment. And one of the most influential books I've read in my career, was this book, Stephen Covey's Speed of Trust. And what he argues is, you have to have trust, right? I'm the author of a book about zero trust, and I'm saying you have to have trust, right? When it comes to dealing with other people, you have to have trust at the same time, that you use your own natural skepticism. And so, again, I think calling it trust but verified a little flippant. But if you have no trust, and no analysis, right? That's the cynicism thing. Okay, I'm not just even going to think about this. If you have high trust and low skepticism, right? You're just going. If you have, low trust and high skepticism, right? Okay, you're just challenging everything. I think having, high trust and high skepticism at the same time, right? It's not, I thought about trust for a long time as like that speedometer needle, right? It's a spectrum, right? So, at what point do I trust or not trust on the spectrum? It's always kind of confusing. Or is it binary, or, do I, well, I think it's actually a matrix. So when you apply trust and skepticism at the same time, what Covey argues is, you actually have, that those are the conditions in which you have a good judgment, right? There's a trust tax when you don't trust other people. All the transactions around you, there's a cost to those things, and you slow down, your personal life, your business, to account for those things. But if you have high trust, you can move quickly and at the same time avoid dangers. So, I think throw away the cynical mindset, right? We can be allowed, to be curious and interested in different things. And that's cool. At the same time, we have to be always on the lookout for threats, kind of embracing that mindset of zero trust when it comes to technology and how we're trusting, those different apps or services we use. And understanding, okay, I'm giving my data here. Why am I doing that? How could that be misused or taken against me? I'm using, Chat GPT, but I'm not going to upload, personal identifiable information to Chat GPT. Okay. This is starting to make sense to me. I'm not going to download code from Chat GPT and put it into production without any sort of, analysis, right? Okay. That's a really great example of using that high trust, high skepticism approach in real life.
For individuals or even groups, companies that want to get into that better mindset, are there any habits that you suggest start working on these, start focus on this to start building towards kind of getting into that right frame of mind?
I'm so glad you asked, Alan. I invented, what I think the world's first cybersecurity personality test. So in my book, Well Aware, won the Book of the Year award. It it's kind of like Stephen Covey's 7 habits for highly effective people. I think there are 9 cybersecurity habits. Uh, and, the book came out of, I'm doing these presentations uh, and somebody's like, 9 habits is too many habits. We just one. Let's start it. That's all I need. That's all I can, that's all I have time for. I'm like, okay. So what the cyber personality test does, we developed it to help people identify their own strengths when it comes to cyber. So I like to argue, from an individual perspective, take the test, find out what your strengths are, focus on those first. Right. Your strengths are going to be the low hanging fruit. That's going to help you build momentum. It's going to help you change your identity, right? From someone who doesn't get security. I don't, look, maybe you're not skeptical, and naturally, right? There's so many other strengths you could have, that, I think this will help you bring those out and help that again, as you build that momentum, you're going to reinforce that identity of that you're someone that does value security, that does get it. And that's going to help you do other things long term. I've worked with CISOs and their teams to do team personality assessments, right? To help you show where your strengths are as a team, and does that align with the mission or the outcomes that your team has for the year. And let's think about, okay, how did that help my team, avoid burnout? Because we're doing things that are natural for us, or how does that help us, encourage us to grow? I work with CEOs, and we've done that for their leadership teams to help their whole team, right? Whether it's a VP for sales or accounting, CFOs or general counsels, right? Okay, we all are great security practitioners. We're again, legal is doing it, CFOs are doing it. How do we work together and start to think about security in our organizations? There's a trickle down effect that we can have. So I would say start with your strengths. But if you don't have time to take the cyber personality test, that's like a 5-minute thing. It's 22 questions. I would say start with the habit of community. I think out of all the 9 habits, right, if you don't have time for anything else, community is the whole reason we come together as a species, right? It's for mutual protection. That's why civilization became a thing. We can't reach our full potential as humans on our own, because we're vulnerable for at least 8 hours a day when we're sleeping. So we have to have other people around us to protect ourselves. And we've kind of advanced a long way since the beginning of civilization. But I think grasping that community, right, whether it's listening to podcasts like this, or it's going to conferences and talking about security, whether maybe it's a conference for HR professionals, right? I think security plays a really important role in HR, and HR plays a really important role in security. There's so many different ways to participate in that community. And I would say this maybe is another one of the great myths that I personally, kind of overcame in my career, right? As a security person, right? You're supposed to play your card close to the vest, and you're never supposed to talk about anything and keep everything secret. And at the same time, keep up with technology. No, that's not the way it works. The more that I embraced community, the more that I engaged, or went to networking dinners, or I'm on now threads of text threads with other CISOs, right? Oh my gosh, those things are so incredibly valuable for me to keep up, to ask questions, to help get responses. If your organization is not already a member of an information security advisory council, right? There are lots of different industry ISACs out there. Join one of those. That's your community habit at work. So many different ways to exercise community. I think community is the most important of the 9 cybersecurity habits. But if that's not your strength, maybe you're an introvert like me and not an extrovert, and community isn't your thing. That's cool too. You can start with other things and build that out over time, and it'll start to feel more natural.
I love it. Myers-Briggs, Enneagram, those things are out. We only recognize cyber personality tests moving forward. I'm here for that. George,
Right
I
on.
want to get you out on one question here because you've been awesome to be with me today and talking about this. You just mentioned just a moment ago, keeping things close to the vest. That's such a natural tendency for a lot of people and companies too, right? But I think in this day and age, the individuals that interact with companies, whether they're traditional customers, whether they're patients, if that's the setting, whatever those individuals might be, I think more and more today, they want to know about a company's security posture or compliance program or privacy posture, those things, those risk-based kind of fields. So how do you think a company who maybe wants to keep things like that close to the vest can get comfortable stepping out and really showing off in a sense to customers, to patients, to really build trust with them when it comes to, security program?
I think people expect now, their data to remain private. That they expect companies to abide by, what they're saying on their websites about uh, uh, protecting their information. And I think there's definitely been this trend, just like, every person has a, credit rating score. Every company now has a cyber rating score through one of the several companies that are in that space to do cyber scoring. And, I think, now that as an organization that that's out there and that anybody can kind of look that up when they're thinking about partnering with you, I would say before you partner with somebody else, go check that score. There's Security Scorecard, there's BitSight. There's so many different ones out there that I think are worth looking at. They're not perfect, just like your credit rating isn't necessarily perfect, right? You can get things taken off that aren't exactly lining up with reality. I think if you know that credit score is out there, what do you do? Well, I'm going to work on that. How do we get that better? I know that I, need to get a loan in a year. Let me start working on that so I can go buy a house. I think companies should take the same approach, right? Let me look at that. My BitSight score is low compared to my peers. That's a problem. How do I turn that into a competitive advantage? How do I make that, a selling point to say, look, you should do business with us because we're the best in the industry. I think that's the kind of leadership that people get excited to be a part of. And that really makes a difference.
Awesome stuff. George, you've given me so much great insight, a lot to think about personally. I know everybody listening is really going to be into it as well. Thanks so much for joining us on this episode, man.
Thank you, Alan.
And that's a wrap for another episode of Comply or Die. We hope you enjoyed our conversation with George Finney. If you found this episode to be valuable, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review. Your feedback keeps this thing going. Stay compliant, stay informed, and of course, stay tuned for the next episode of Comply or Die. Till then, this is Alan Wilemon signing off. Thanks for listening, everybody.
You've tuned in to the Comply or Die podcast. If you found this episode informative, we would appreciate it if you could take a moment to give us a 5-star rating. It helps us reach a wider audience and spread the knowledge. Don't forget to share the podcast with your friends or colleagues who could benefit from these insights. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll hope you'll join us again for our next episode. Until next time, stay informed, stay compliant, and stay in business.